made for elevation. I'm a soldier, won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping and the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. We're rising up, rising up, we're rising up, rising up, we're rising up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us.
And welcome everyone to another episode of Straight Talk with Joe Vollano. It was an absolutely terrific weekend. If you did not have an opportunity to check out our live show we had all weekend long, we were at the Connecticut Republican State Convention. We also kept everyone up to date on what was going over at the Democratic State Convention that was held over at the Connecticut Convention Center in Hartford. Obviously, the Republican one was held at Foxwoods Resort Casino up in Ledyard, and it was a great time. Met some really great people, met some other podcasters. We were very fortunate enough. They gave us a great spot. I mean, for those of you who weren't there, some of you who saw the videos, we had a tremendous spot. They gave us a whole stage out in the back, and we were able to stream live. We streamed live the whole day on Saturday, because Friday night wasn't all that exciting. It was just mostly formality stuff. But let's get to the formalities of why we're here. So if any of you, first of all, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Because if I go into this first and I don't get to that, I'm gonna get yelled at. So to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. And I would hope you all had an absolutely terrific day. Other than that, I am Joe Vollano. I am your host, your guiding light through the craziness and chaos that's going on today. We're going to touch a whole range of topics. We're going to talk about the winners and losers of the conventions. I'm going to give my picks on who I want to represent my side, which is obviously the Republican side. I'll give my thoughts on who I would like to see and who I would have preferred to see. But of course, this show always works best when you're involved, and I want to hear about your choices. And that you can call in 203-679-9610, or you could email us straighttalkjv@gmail.com. We're going to get into it. I got a ton of emails because there is one thing we're going to talk about. Obviously, like you said, like I always say, we don't shy away from the third rail stuff. And obviously, everybody knows about the Supreme Court leak about Roe versus Wade. And we're going to get into it tonight because I think it's important. I see a lot of people here in Connecticut trying to make this into a big political thing here in the state, which really doesn't matter here because we already have laws in place. So when this is overturned in June, it doesn't really affect anything here in the state. And thank you, Glenn. And as you know, we also have the live chat. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, no matter what platform you're using, you can always join in on the group chat. I see it is up and running. So we're going to get into all these topics. We don't shy away from the third rail stuff. And abortion, everyone knows my position on abortion. I am going to articulate it again tonight, just so everybody knows where I stand on it. And I'm gonna play probably my most favorite clip. My most favorite clip of on the abortion issue, especially when it comes to my body, my choice, and because nothing irritates me more than when I hear women say, "Stay out of my uterus." There's nothing that annoys me more because it is the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard. And I'm gonna play later on tonight my favorite comeback to that, and that happens to be from Ben Shapiro, who I think is in the forefront of the pro-life movement, and he probably articulates it better than anybody ever has. So, of course, you know my stance on abortion. I've mentioned it here many a times, and from what I say is that I take away the religious part of it. We stay away from the religious side. That's what they want you to go. That's where the pro-choice and the pro-life want you to go. They want you to go to the religious side so they can sit there and really try to divide there. I do it via a right or wrong. That's how I look at it. And again, we'll get into that later on because I think most importantly, what we need to talk about tonight first is exactly the people that are going to be representing the respective sides as the endorsed candidates from the parties. Now, how do I feel about those? Do I think that endorsements matter? Back in the day, yes. When you didn't have social media and you didn't have Twitter and all these other different places to go and find out information, yes, endorsements from your party actually meant something. I believe in today's day, it doesn't mean anything. It really, only thing that I think these conventions do, and I kind of alluded to it over the weekend, is that it gives you a sense of where your party's at. Is your party moving more towards the right or left, or is it moving more towards the center? And I think, and that's exactly what we got this weekend. We got an inside glimpse on where the parties were trying to go. Now, Republicans tried moving more towards the center, and the left went to the left. That's where they went. And it's kind of ironic, and Mr. Hanson, I know you're going to enjoy it. I find it ironic that the left, many on the left, fell victim to identity politics. What they sit there and claim we need to do more, all this nonsense that goes around, that comes with identity politics, especially for Senator Lesser. He had to fall on the sword this weekend. I'm glad you do, Lisa. I don't. He had to fall on the sword this weekend because of one simple fact. And I know Democrats don't want to hear this. Lesser, probably the best candidate for Secretary of State for the Democratic side, fell victim because of only one reason. He's white. He's white. Can you believe that? So Republicans, at least we over on the right side, we had disagreements on ideology. On ideology. Democrats at the Connecticut Convention Center, it was a race war. That's what it was. It was a race war. What color? They didn't do anything based on the character, on their character. It was all based on what color you were. That's why Senator Lesser wanted to move the Secretary of State vote from the last to the first, so that in case all minorities were elected before then, he would have a fighting chance if he did it first. But since it was done to the at last, if there was too many white people and you had Susan Beisowitz, you had the governor, and I believe the comptroller, I believe. So if they didn't have a minority there, he was done. They weren't going to consider him based on his character or based on whether or not he was appropriate for the job. He was going to be voted on or not voted on based on the color of his skin. How crazy is that? That is lunacy to me. But again, this is what happens when you play identity politics. And the left loves to play identity politics. And if any Democrat wants to turn out and tell me that I'm wrong, please, by all means, I'm going to put this number up here. Anyone who disagrees with me, 203-679-9610, and tell me how the Democratic convention was not racist. Because that's all they displayed all weekend long. You were not going to get voted on or nominated based on the color of your skin, not because of what you stood for or your credentials or anything else. That is sad. That's where a political party's at. We can have disagreements on ideology, and trust me, we have plenty of it on the right side. And again, we're going to go right into this. So let me just go through who was nominated first. Obviously, Bob Stefanowski is the Republican candidate for governor. Now, obviously, he was really unopposed. Really, he was unopposed. But is he my favorite choice? No. And for several reasons. One, he's boring to me. He doesn't give you anything. He doesn't make you want to jump out and say, "Oh, I want to vote for this guy." There's no excitement there. So I don't see it. Well, of course, Hansen knew the sequence of endorsements. Of course, everybody did, but nobody knew until the governor made his statement that he wanted a diverse ticket. So, Les Hansen, if you're going to post things, make sure you're accurate on it. So, Bob Stefanowski, while he is a good candidate, and I will support him, and I will vote for him, and he almost won last time, there are certain things that do create a little issue for me. And one, again, is his approachability, I think, isn't where it should be. I think his message is very vague. I need him to get more specific. And again, I just think he's very dry. And I have the same problem with him as I do with like a Peter Lamage, who's running for U.S. Senate, and we'll get into that. But again, and he's going to go up against obviously Ned Lamont, who is the current governor. Well, you have to relate to the inner cities. Yeah, Bob Stefanowski would have won if it was, but send Bob your Taylor. I tell you what, that would do him good. That would do him real good. Maybe put him in a bow tie. But listen, you have to win the inner cities. But again, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Now, if people are smart, and I know if you watched my interview with George Logan, who is the endorsed candidate for the 5th Congressional District for Republicans, me and him touched on exactly that issue, that the inner cities is where it's going to matter. And in the inner cities, there has been a huge population of Hispanics, which, by the way, Hispanics aren't too happy with the Democrats right now, especially in the state, because all the Hispanics were snubbed at the Democratic convention this weekend, which is another issue we'll talk about later on in the show. But if you looked at the polls that are coming out, 54% of Hispanics are leaning more towards Republicans this time around than Democrats. And that is the first time in a long time that that's ever happened. And that is an area of opportunity that every single Republican, including myself, should be trying to reach out to and making sure that segment of the population is being brought into the conversation. They want to be brought into the conversation. So whether or not that's going to happen, time will tell. And we're going to find out where these Hispanics on the Democratic side, where they're going to fall. Because like I said, they're very upset that none of their nominees were selected to be the endorsed candidates. So including, Meriden's own Hilda Santiago, who again started this whole controversy with the governor's remarks, where she basically said, well, apparently that, the governor wants us to win because we're only one of two Hispanics that are running for any position. So, and she put it out there as that was an endorsement for her, and it sent Senator Lesser into a tizzy, and that's when he wanted rules changed. But I understand where Senator Lesser was coming from. Like I said, I just found it ironic, and I still laugh at it today, that he lost due to his own party's nonsense, the whole identity politics. So I'm really interested. I'm really interested on getting him on here and explain that he will never show up. But I can't wait to hear his views in the coming days on how that all went down. Because again, to lose a nomination based on nothing more but the color of your skin is just ridiculous to me. Ridiculous. But that's exactly what happened. And that is what liberals are all about. Identity politics. Do you fit this criteria? Doesn't matter about your background. Doesn't matter about how qualified you are. On the outside, do you fit that right identity? Are you a woman? Are you black? Are you Hispanic? Are you Indian? If you're a minority, that's a plus. If you're a woman, it's a plus. If you're a trans woman, oh my God, that would have sent everybody right through the wall. No, but Glenn, if anyone appeals to the middle more than anybody, it's Bob Stefanowski. Ned Lamont does not appeal to the middle. Ned Lamont is a leftist. Bob Stefanowski is no right-wing conservative at all. So if anyone's gonna win the middle and win the independents, it's gonna be Bob Stefanowski. Bob Stefanowski's issue is, one, can he create enough excitement to get people out the door and get to the voting booths? And I don't think that is, but I'm hoping that down the ticket, we'll have some exciting people to get people out. You can't say no shot. He just about beat him last time. So you can't say there's no shot. That'd be a ridiculous statement. He definitely has a shot. And the way this economy's going and the way inflation's going and all these other things going on, he definitely has a great shot at winning this year. And he does need to communicate that. And that's the problem with him. And again, I'm hoping we'll probably have him on the show because I do talk to him. I hope he does communicate that because that is desperately needed for him to win this election cycle. But to sit there and say he doesn't appeal to the middle, that he's the only one that appeals to the middle that's running in that race. So, and he definitely doesn't appeal to the hardcore Republicans or conservatives like myself. Oh, I was shocked Terry Wood did as well as she did. You're getting a little far ahead of us. That's two down. So the big one for the GOP was for U.S. Senate. U.S. Senate was a very interesting race. And I really didn't think that it was going to be a blowout. Clarice, I really, again, because this is where I say we were trying to figure out where parties were going to go. And Republicans definitely moved to the center with Thermos. We moved to the center because Leora Levy and Peter Lamage were the two conservatives in the group. But even if they joined forces, they still would not have beat Clarice in the race because she got 56% of the vote. So it definitely, she got 56.84% of the vote compared to Levy, who got 22.7, and Lamage, who got 19.95. Even if you put those two together, they're still only at 43%. 43%. Enjoy it. Now, the question I have is, how is that going to play out in the primary? Because again, if you're a conservative like myself, she is not your candidate. If you believe in the Second Amendment, she is not your candidate. If you are a pro-lifer, she is not your candidate at all. If you liked Donald Trump, she is not your candidate. So again, the party was trying to move more towards the center with her. Now, granted, she's been in politics for 25 years, or over 20 years. I don't know if it's quite 25, but she's been in politics for 20 years. Now, do I like her in some instances? Yeah. When it comes to fiscal responsibility, yes, I like her. Is she a fighter? Yeah. Okay. She goes toe to toe. But can I vote for her over a Lori Levy or a Peter Lamage? Absolutely not. She didn't vote for him. She wrote in a former past House Minority Leader. Who cares? But she's no conservative. So she will not be getting my vote in August. Now, here's the problem I have. And I spoke with a couple candidates over the weekend, if you go back and watch the videos. I'm afraid all three of them are going to be on the primary ticket because they all got above the 15% mark. So you're going to have a three-way race going into August 9th. The current problem I have and concern I have is that Lori Levy and Peter Lamage is going to split the conservative vote. And if they split the conservative vote, she walks right in. So I find it very important, and I am hoping that Levy and Lamage could somehow work out a deal to come together. And if I had to pick one, I'm taking Lori Levy. I'm picking Lori Levy because what does she bring to the ticket? One, Trump will be here. I guarantee you, if Lori Levy wins in August, Donald Trump will make as many trips here to Connecticut as he needs to. I guarantee you. And again, I think that is if you're Bob Stefanowski, you want Lori Levy. Not because, again, Bob Stefanowski, I don't believe is a big Trump fan, but what does Donald Trump bring? Donald Trump brings excitement. Donald Trump fires up his base, and the base needs to show up. He needs to show up. Listen, Peter is a great guy, great backstory, but he's not electable. He's just not. He's not approachable. He doesn't articulate it to the way that Lori Levy does. I just don't think he has a chance. But if they can combine forces and work together, I think they stand a very good chance. And then remember, so in case those of you who don't know who Lori Levy is, She is also one of the national RTC members. So the Republican, or not RTC, the National Republican National Committee, so RNC members. So the NRC, the Republican National Committee, is made up of all members, a couple of members of each state, and she is part of that. So she does have a lot of connections. She brings in a lot of money. Okay. So she brings in a lot of money. And I think she has, if I had to pick one, Lori Levy probably has the best chance at beating Dick Blumenthal. Hands down. But she needs Peter Lamage to come on board. Now, will Peter do that? I doubt it. But if Peter does care about beating Dick Blumenthal, then I think he understands that he has to throw his support behind Levy. I think the way we're set up right now in this primary, that they're going to split that. They're going to split that vote, and it's going to hurt conservatives' chances at putting a good candidate forward. So that's my opinion on that. But she's, excuse me. Let's see. I thought I had it here. And I was reading some of the coverage over this last weekend too especially on Channel 8. I was listening to the pundits or the talk about the Republicans and how they're trying to move away from Donald Trump. And from the people that were elected, you might see where they were coming from. To me, I think that's a huge mistake. I think that's going to be a huge mistake. Because as we've seen with primaries around the country, when it comes to Republicans, you may not like Donald Trump, but you got to respect what he brings to the table. And the minute you sit there and downplay or discredit what Trump is to a lot of people, you're going to find yourself lost. You're going to find yourself left in the background. If I look at a lot of the people that were at this convention, and for the people I've talked to, there's a lot of centrists. There's not that many conservatives. DeSantis is Trump, just a watered down version of him, a more calm version. And Donald Trump and DeSantis will be on the ticket come 2024. But to sit there and try to run from Trump is a huge mistake. Because whether or not you like Trump or not, if you compare the Trump years to the Biden years, it's friggin' night and day. And no one can sit there and say different. Donald Trump might have been an asshole, but he got stuff done. And he did what he promised. And again, I'm always a firm believer. I'm a firm believer that you get what you ask for. And if you ask for, he is watered down. If you ask for anything more from Donald Trump or anything less from Donald Trump, you're in for trouble. And again, he still holds a lot of political weight. Trump is never going to step aside. And DeSantis does not want Trump to step aside. Just think that you could have so much more. You're going to have Donald Trump and you're going to have DeSantis with each other. And then once Trump leaves after obviously he could only do one more term. Then you had DeSantis that follows right behind for 8 years. That is wonderful news for every conservative out there. So, no. And on top of it, if it wasn't for Trump, DeSantis wouldn't even be relevant anyways. All I say is go against Trump at your own peril. But facts and results don't lie. How much as you hated Trump's personality, again, I'm right there with you. How many times have I sit there and said that? I wish Trump would just shut up or would just stay off Twitter. But at the end of the day, I care more about results. I don't care if he's an asshole. I didn't hire him for that. I hired him to get things done and to get things moving in the right direction. And he did that. Tell me where he did it. There's only one party. There's only one party that used lies, manipulation to try to take him down, and that's the Democrats. And just think, in having 2 years of this fake Russia crap, and then of course you have the impeachment, all of this, and he still got everything done. Imagine if he had 4 years to just do everything without any distractions. Imagine what Trump could have done. Hell, we're a year and a half into the Biden administration, and they're still talking about Donald Trump. They're still talking about Donald Trump. He lives rent-free in every far-left liberal's head on a daily basis. They can't get him out of their head. And he knows it. And he exploits that because they're crazy. Donald Trump will win in 2024, and DeSantis will be his vice president. And then in 4 years after that, we're going to have President DeSantis for another 8 years. And if you're a conservative, if you're a Republican, you are excited about that. Now, let's talk about this year, though, and what we have. We need conservatives to get elected this time around. We need to put a pause to what's going on down in Washington. And the only way to pause it is to get the House and Senate back. To get the House and Senate back, we need to send conservatives down to Washington. And she's not it. Leora Levy, hands down, is the best person to go up against Dick Blumenthal and to send a conservative down to Washington, D.C. That's what we need to do. Now, for the Secretary of State race on the Republican side, we'll do Republicans first, and then we'll go over to the Democratic side, because there's only real two that were really competitive in the Republican side, and that is the Secretary of State. Which again, I never thought the Secretary of State was such a. I didn't ever thought Secretary of State would be like the contest to watch on both sides. Never thought that in my life. But indeed it was. And we had three on the Republican side. You had Dominic Rapini, who, if you've been in politics long enough, you know who Dominic Rapini is. You had Woods, and then you had Brock Weber. Now, Brock Weber, you probably, unless you're a Republican and you're familiar with campaigns, you probably don't know who Brock Weber is. Woods is a state rep, so you most know who she is. Brock Weber, you don't, unless, like I said, you're into politics. And he's helped out in many campaigns over the years. We've seen him many a times come to RTC meetings, come to different events in support of whoever he's supporting at that time. So, like I say, if you're an insider, you definitely know who Brock Weber is. And I was rooting for Brock Weber. I thought it was about time that everybody got behind him. Out of all the people he supported, they should come behind him and bring him over the top. This was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Dominic Rapini at the end of the first round had 41%. Brock had 32%, and Woods had 26%. And then, of course, horse trading goes on. We won't bore you if you want to go into all that. Go back and watch the show from the weekend. It was on Saturday afternoon. So if you go back to Saturday's show after 12:30, 1 o'clock, you can sit there and watch the whole Secretary of State race unfold before yourself. So it took 32 minutes from the time the first tally was done to people switching votes. Now, the thing about conventions is once the first round of voting is done, then there's horse trading. You can move back. You can move delegates back and forth. And it took 32 minutes before Rapini finally got over the 50% plus one mark, which he needed. He needed 604 votes to get the nomination. Again, to me, Dominic Rapini, listen, I like all three. I can't complain about any of them. If I had my choice, it would have been Weber, because I think Weber is probably the most electable. And I hate that word, electable, but they're all good Republicans. And they're all decent conservatives. Secretary of State, I think Brock Weber should have taken that one. And Brock Weber could throw a heck of an after party. I'm sure he could. I was sleeping by 10 o'clock. So I did not attend any of the after parties. I know a lot of my friends from who are on the Meriden delegation. I was part of the Meriden delegation. I know a lot of them went out and had fun at the after parties. So again, if you've never been to a convention, they're very unique. They're very unique, and now they throw some good parties. So now apparently, from what I hear, Weber had an amazing party. It was an open bar party. I hear someone had an ice cream bar, which of course would have been my favorite. I would have went and had ice cream all night long. But listen, I was tired setting up, getting everything, doing the show multiple times during that day, meeting with different people. By the time I got done at, I think like 8:30, I wrapped up. I was done. I was ready. I went and I had dinner. And I went straight to bed after that. And then of course I had to get up early in the morning to go back down and set everything back up and get ready for the long day. Bring these prices. Hey, we might be doing, in fact, Joey, I'll talk to you afterwards because we will be doing obviously we're running for state senate. Of course, our after party will most likely probably be over at the Silver City Ballroom this year. So I'll be talking to you in the coming weeks. But that's a whole other story. But so again, this is going to be a three-way race going into August 9th. August 9th is the primaries. So you're going to have three. You're going to have Woods, Weber, and Rapini all vying for that spot in August. Obviously, Dominic Rapini has the endorsement. But like I said, that really doesn't mean anything anymore. And I like the conventions, but I know there's been many articles on whether or not these conventions and the convention style and the delegate style is the way to go. Because you do spend a lot of money. I mean, I think, what was it? Ray, you just said it. Weber threw an after party that had an open bar. I mean, is that really necessary to spend all that money? Because I can only imagine how much money that cost him to have an open bar, especially with the crew that was there, from what I hear. Listen, is it worth it when you can be spending that money going against your opponents? I just don't see how it's worth that kind of money. But that's me. I think they should start doing maybe doing a different style. Maybe again, because like I said, they don't really mean anything. So I would say even if the state central party selected the delegates or selected the endorsers. I could be fine with that too. So in case you don't know who that is, each party has a state, obviously a state committee. So for Republicans, you know, they have the Republican state central, which is from, you know, each one has a representative. I think it's 2 for each Senate district. So there's 36 districts. So what? 72 members of it. I don't even have an issue with them nominating who the candidates will be for a state-run office. Because to me, again, it doesn't matter anymore. It would save all these candidates a lot of money and let them get their message out to the Republicans that are going to vote for them in August. So to me, I mean, that's just my opinion on the fact. But again, all 3 of them will be on it. They're all good candidates. It doesn't matter which one wins to me. If I had to pick my choice, I pick Weber because that's who my delegate vote went to for the convention. So I hope Weber wins, and we'll see what happens, and maybe we'll have him on the show maybe in a couple weeks. But that's going to be a fun race to watch. Again, and then on the Democratic side, obviously, like I said, so you had your normal ones that weren't really highly contested. And that was for your governor races, and I think the controller, and then you had the state treasurer. The state treasurer and the secretary of state were the 2 big ones on the Democratic side. Now, again, to me, I have a real issue with the identity politics. We talked about that earlier. Because you had, at the end of the day, and this is exactly what Senator Lesser was concerned about. Because you had Tong, who is Asian, Secretary of State, and then you had your obviously Lieutenant Governor and Governor are both white. And then you had the state treasurer, which went to Russell, who is black. And then you had to go through the Secretary of State. And again, this is where Hilda Santiago got into trouble. But again, it was Ned Lamont who started the whole thing. Ned Lamont said that he wanted a diverse group that shows every ethnicity to mirror the electorate. Which again, Hilda, no matter whether she was right or wrong, and if you read into it, it says, okay, well, if you're going to have an Asian already, and you're going to have an African-American already, and you're going to have whites already, well, who does he want to win? Obviously, he wants a Hispanic to win. If you read into it, and Hilda Santiago's group definitely read into it. And they were the first ones to come out and say, well, then apparently he wants us to get the nomination. And Lesser had a fit. And no doubtedly, I would have a fit too if I was him, I guess. Because now it's saying, all right, well, I can't win because we already have 2 white people on the ticket. We need to have a Hispanic. So of course he was smart, whether he was right or wrong, and whether you agree with it or not. If you're in Senator Lesser's campaign, of course you want to try to move that vote. You want to move that vote to the beginning because now the slate is clean right now. You don't know who's going to be elected. So it does one of 2 things. One, it allows Matt Lesser to have an opportunity to win. And if any Hispanic or African-American does not win, then they can move to a different, and this is how crazy it is. Again, because it makes no difference about whether you're qualified. It makes no bit whether you're qualified. In fact, if you have not watched, I want to make sure you go to the Connecticut Mirror. It is a left-leaning nonprofit journal. Well, they say nonprofit journalism. They do some good stuff. But ConnecticutMirror.org. You go and read their article on this. And it is breathtaking. But it does not matter whether or not you're qualified for a position. Only thing the Democrats cared about this weekend, and this is very sad, The only thing they cared about all weekend long is making sure that their ticket was ethnically and racially diverse. That's all they cared about. Doesn't matter whether you're qualified or not. If you lost the Secretary of State, you could move to something else. And that's what their plans were. That's what Matt Lesser's plans were. So if he lost, or if any Hispanic or minority lost that seat, they could move to something else. Now, of course, that didn't fly, and it stayed the way it was. So, of course, he fell on the sword. He had to. You have no choice. Nobody was going to elect him. Nobody was going to vote for him simply based because he was white. Martin Luther King would be rolling in his grave. It's absolutely crazy. But that is the liberals of today. That is the liberals of today. And of course, for the state treasurer's race, you had Dalton and Russell. Both were black, so they already knew that they were going to get a spot there. So left the Secretary of State. And the crazy thing is, Secretary of State got another African American. So now the Hispanics are going crazy. Hispanics are going crazy. So now you think, what's going to happen? Who do they throw their support behind? Now again, there will be a primary. The question is, now the candidates have 10 days to sit there and apply for the primary. Will Hilda Santiago primary? If she primaries, that means her seat in the 84th is open. And that means, one, Democrats have to fill that spot in a quick manner because, remember, that convention is only a week away. For Republicans, they would have to find someone to run that seat if it's an open seat. And I think theirs is the 18th, so next Wednesday. I don't see her primarying. I agree with you, Sean. I don't think she primaries because I don't think she doesn't want to risk losing. Listen, Hilda Santiago, nice lady. Don't get me wrong. Personally, nice lady. Politically, she's freaking nuts. But I think if anything, she enjoys, no, I don't want to say the power because I don't think she's that type of person. She enjoys talking to people. She's a very relatable person. She's a very relatable person. She's sweet as can be. Always there to have a conversation. I don't think she wants to go away from that. Now, I know she had support of Senator Murphy because obviously she works for Senator Murphy in his office. So of course she had his support, but I don't see her leaving her spot. I don't see her leaving her spot in the 84th. I don't. For those exact reasons I just said, she likes dealing with people way too much. And again, she's a sweet, sweet lady. I can't take that away from her. And she tries to do good on behalf of the people. Do I think she's the right person for the job? No, I love to see a Republican run someone against her. But and personally, I like her. She's a good Democrat. So, but again, that's my opinion on it. So, but yeah. So, and if you go, and of course you got Dick Blumenthal. How can I forget about him? So, now let's get down to the good stuff. Because again, I've been getting my email. My email has been friggin' off the hook ever since this leak of the Supreme Court case came down. And people can ask me, what do you think about it? What do you think about it? Okay. I mean, just because it's leaked and it doesn't matter either way. my opinion on abortion does not change. So, but I think most people that have been in my email are talking about Catholics and Jewish and this and that. It's like, stop. That's your first problem right there. That's your first problem. Never, ever, 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 ever let religion into your decision making when it comes to things like this. Because to me, it's about right and wrong. It's about personal choice. That's where it comes to me. So am I pro-life? 100% yes, I am pro-life. Now, more importantly, I'm all for people taking responsibility for their own actions. And again, I can speak about this personally because I've been there. I've been in this situation. So yeah, so when people say, well, how can you talk about that? Yes, have you ever had to make that choice? Yes, we have. And we chose life, which is great. And I thank her every day for it. So yes, I do have a personal connection with the abortion issue. And therefore, I'll have a strong friggin' opinion on it. Now, again, to me, it's all about personal choice. You chose to have sex. You chose to get pregnant. Therefore, you are going to have a baby. Now, with that said, rape, forced incest. I am not against abortion in the first couple weeks. Because you didn't make that choice. That choice was made for you. That's where I draw the line. And it would have to be in the first couple weeks. Plan B, again, that's done within the first couple weeks. Now, all these people love, now again, this is what I love about these friggin' hardcore pro-choice people. They try to take forced rape and incest and say, well, if you're not for that, then if you're for that, then you're for everything. No. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. So, listen, if it's forced rape and incest, I got you. I am right alongside you to say, all right, you could either you could have it, you get the abortion or not get the abortion. That's up to you. But to sit there and try to justify that, because every time you say you're pro-life, they say, well, what about rape and incest? Okay, well, if we could come to an agreement, if me and you could come to an agreement that everything else is bad, but rape and incest, I'm on board with. If we could start there, then we could have a conversation. But the problem I have with the pro-choice groups is that they try to take rape and incest, which is, again, like 0.003% of all abortions in this country. Listen, there's over 300 to 400,000 abortions every year in America. 0.003 are because of rape or forced incest. So if we could come to an agreement that the other 99.997% are bad and should be outlawed, then we can start a conversation. But they're trying to take the hyperstrata here and try to make it through all. And that's where I have a problem. Because that's not the case. Using it as a contraceptive is not the case. It's not the answer. You could get the pill. There's birth control readily available that's very cheap that you could be on. Guys can wear condoms. Have a vasectomy. I don't care. But to kill a living being? No. And at some point, you got to draw that line. As a moral country, you have to draw that line. It's not okay to kill people. And I love those people that are pro-choice, but then sit there and say, well, what about you can't kill people. Capital punishment's bad. Okay, well, and then people ask me the same question again over and over again, is how can you be pro-life and then want to kill criminals? Well, that's easy. That criminal made a choice. That criminal made a choice to kill another human being. They weren't forced to. They made a choice to. That baby has made no choice. That baby has no opportunity to make a choice. And we already talked about the abortion. It's fine. That's within the first week or so. And that's, again, based on certain criterias. So at what point do we as Americans sit there and say, no, I'm not for killing somebody, especially in the most innocent among us? That's my take on abortion. That's always been my position. That always will be my position. I think for medical reasons, if a doctor, whether it's the life of the mother is in jeopardy, okay, well, that's a choice between the doctor and the mother. Again, I'm not a hardcore, just I want to run your body. No, that's not the case at all. But the one question always comes up, and I told you I was going to play it, because again, it is my favorite clip of Ben Shapiro, because he narrows this, he knocks it down so well. And I'm just going to play it for you. Here we go.
Do you defend your opinion as a white, well-off, religious man? How do you defend your telling a woman what she can do with her body?
Because evil things are still evil, even if I'm a white, well-off religious man, and good things are still good, even if I'm a white, well-off religious man. This is one of these identity politics points that I really I don't mean to come down harshly on you, I don't, but it is a point that I really have serious moral qualms with. I think it's quite terrible. The reason being that the people who were fighting against enslavement of black people were a bunch of well-off white men for the most part. Right? And those people were saying, this is a moral sin. This is a moral blot. They weren't living in the South. They didn't own plantations. They didn't live the lives of the plantation owners. They said, this is evil, and we are here to stop it. Right? When you see something that you think is morally wrong happening, especially when you're talking about the taking of a human life, like, listen, I think that you shouldn't go around randomly killing homeless people. I just have this view. I'm not a homeless person. Most of the people who randomly kill homeless people are probably not of my economic strata, my religious view, or my, I don't know whether they're of my skin color or not. I have no idea what the actual sociological breakdown of homeless killer serial murderers is. But I would suggest that my identity has nothing to do with what is right or wrong. And this is what Western civilization used to be about. Western civilization used to be about the idea that, yes, I'm not a woman in the healthcare field, but you and I can have a conversation about what's right and wrong, because this is the nature of human reason. The nature of human reason, the nature of right and wrong, is that you and I can talk about what's right and wrong, and that I don't retreat into my identity. If we can all retreat into our identity, and our morality is now centered around that identity, morality doesn't exist at all. We break down into a society of fragmented atoms where I can't even say, like, you're torturing a puppy in your backyard. I have nothing to say about that. I'm not a white woman who's in the healthcare field. I'm not going to do that. I refuse to surrender the idea that I can have a moral stance on issues that are of concern to society and of concern to the well-being of the United States simply because of the color of my skin or the nature of my genitalia. And honestly, I believe any view that feels differently is sexist, racist, and bigoted.
Amen. And that's exactly it. Again, the far left always into identity politics. We talked about it earlier in the show. They're doing it now. That's what all this is about. Well, you can't because you're not one of us. No. So, and again, that clip is so perfect for what they try to push down your throat. Shove down your throat, and then you just can't stand for it. And again, it's been coming up in this race in the state. And again, I find it hilarious because we already have laws on the books here in the state of Connecticut that already makes abortion legal. So will it affect anything here in Connecticut come June? No, it won't. So I just find it, that's where I stand. I want to make sure I clarified it because, like I said, I got emails all single week long on it for the last week and a half. So that's where I stand. Like I said, my stance has never changed. That's what it's been for the last 30 years of my life. And it will continue to be until the last breath comes out of my life. I am against killing babies. As a society, I think it's detrimental or even insensitive that we sit there and even think about it. But again, that is my take. Some people aren't the same as I am, and that's okay. We could agree to disagree, and we could still be friends over it. But it is what it is. So real quick, because obviously, not to switch topics, we got to move to some local stuff. Well, the one local thing. Obviously, the Meriden City Council finalized the budget. It went strictly down party line votes, so it went 8-4. The mayor, I do not see him vetoing anything because from what he said, I think he likes the budget. I think the Board of Ed getting a friggin' 5.82% raise in funds. Listen, people don't understand. When you give that money to the Board of Ed, you cannot take it back. It is the one area of the budget that if you give it more money, you cannot take it back. And now they have given it to him. And every year, you're going to hear the Board of Ed coming back for more money, more money, more money. We spend $218 million a year on education in this city. That's more than the budget itself. It costs more to run the Board of Ed than it costs to run the entire friggin' city. Think about that. Think about that. It costs more. $218 million. When you take what the city gives and the state gives and the federal gives, $218 million to run the Board of Education in the city of Meriden. It costs $208 million to run the entire city of Meriden. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone who turns around and says the Board of Ed does not get their fair share is high. It's craziness. There is no way they should have gotten a 5.6% increase in their funding. The people cannot afford it. And I'm glad to see that the Republicans and we the people voted against it. They voted against it, and they should have. This sets us up for some tough times coming over the next couple of years. The mill rate is at 32.99. We talked about it many times over this year and how detrimental these reassessments are going to be on people, especially the seniors and the low income, the renters of the city. They're not going to be able to afford to live here. We literally just bankrupt a portion of the city residents and taxpayers. And over the next year or so, we're going to find out just how bad of a job they did with this budget. Now, again, you have an opportunity to email the mayor and tell him to veto. Don't think it's going to happen. And I think this is just going to take effect. So I think you're going to see a lot of for sale signs coming up over the next couple of weeks as Meriden residents are heading out the door. Those of us who can get out of here. So it's going to be interesting to see what happened and how this all plays out. But we'll talk about that again next week. But until then, guys, as always, I love each and every one of you. And listen, we're living in tough times. And we need to stick together. We need to help each other out. Times are only going to get a little worse as we move ahead. But it is what it is. We're going to have to work together. We're going to have to come together to work through it. And if we all stick together and help each other out, I think we're going to have no problem doing that. But until then, guys, I love each and every one of you guys. I will see you guys again next week. Same time, same green channel. Until then, I love you guys. God bless you. And of course, as always, God bless the great United States of America. Good night, everybody.
And the million faces formed together, made for elevation. And the soldier won't surrender faith. This I can fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening, sleep?